So remember the other day, I told you guys that I came across a Sydney Watson video. Specifically, I came across this Sydney Watson video from this tweet. Now, we've talked about Sydney Watson before, um, specifically because she made an argument against like women using contraception, and we like completely deconstructed that video. But this one she put out just a couple days ago. Female game developers make everything ugly. And the headline here is she looks literally just like them. And it's true. She looks like every single face on here. She looks exactly like the characters. And I thought this was an edit at first, but I went and checked her channel, and lo and behold, this video and the thumbnail actually exist. So we're gonna watch this video. We're gonna dive into her argument, specifically about how women in the game industry are making everything ugly. She changed it? Did she really? Wait, did she really? No, she didn't. It's still there. The thumbnail's the same. Here we go.
Why do they always ruin all the things I like?
Girl. Why do they? Girl. Girl, have you seen yourself?
What do you call the world's snellest antelope with the trots? A shit dick. I am a mature adult. BWA.
Thank you for the $10 dono. The legend of shit dick. We'll never forget him. I'm sure he'll continue to come back for quite some time. Spreading joy and shitty dicks to all. Now, anyway. Sydney Watson, right, is an interesting case study here because she lacks all self-awareness, right? She opens this video like, why do they ruin everything I like? And it's just like, the they you're talking about are just women. You're just asking why women ruin everything you like, and girl, you are a woman. You're a WOMS. Maybe you're the one ruining everything you like, if your thesis is correct. Jack, I didn't lie. I mean, I don't know what to tell you when I literally just went to the channel and the thumbnail was the same.
Why do they always ruin all the things I like?
Maybe you're the one ruining the things you like.
Hi, my name is Sydney. Welcome back to Hell. And as per usual, before we launch in, today's video is sponsored by...
Welcome back to Hell. And hell is one of your own making.
By Foom. Now,
oh yeah, I forgot. She's sponsored by a company whose premise is you should inhale essential oils. I forgot about this. Yeah, chat. In case any of you were wondering, no, you shouldn't inhale essential oils. It's not good for you. It's actually quite bad. Don't put essential oils into your vaporizer and then inhale them. Don't do that.
I think it's pretty well established at this point that society has experienced a major shift in what it considers beautiful and attractive in the last number of years. And
yeah, Fume is basically like a vaporizer, but for essential oils, and its claim is that it's a healthy way to stop smoking.
No, I'm not just talking about...
Which it is not.
Makeup and clothing. I'm also talking about whatever the hell it is that Gen Z is doing. I don't often venture onto their part of the internet, but when I do... This shift in attractiveness is happening all over the place.
I'm so confused by the youth. This is literally... We're less than a minute in, and she's already doing, like, old man yells at cloud. I don't understand the youth. Like, girl, maybe seek to understand, or just shut the fuck up. You either can try to understand, or you can just accept that you don't and move on.
Media,
So Lizelle being in the thumbnail is dumb because Lizelle is literally based on the VA's face, but with features that match the Gith ancestry. Well, yeah, like, I need to be clear from the start, everything she's about to say is incredibly stupid.
Entertainment, film, and television, but one of the areas that people seem to talk about the most is video games. I actually started writing this video with the intention of covering this whole topic in its totality, but I very quickly realized there was a lot to it, so I've broken it up and consider this video number 1, with video number 2 and maybe more than that coming. I don't know, probably just 1 and 2. That's enough, I think. Now, about a month ago, The Gamer published an article titled "Stop Using Mods to Make Female Characters Prettier." The article explains that after the release of the game Baldur's Gate 3, several mods were created to make female characters in the game more attractive. Specifically, Lae'zel, or however this is pronounced, and Shadowheart. Lae'zel pronunciation.
Man, I love how she's talking about this and has so little knowledge about the game. She's opening up the video about that she doesn't know how to talk about the characters she includes in the thumbnail.
Right. Help me, internet.
Another one. My friend's blood not enough.
Who writes these names, bro? The author makes the argument that if people need to make female characters into the perfect woman, then they don't view these characters as a whole, but as commodities. The writer then goes on to say that if female characters need to meet impossible beauty standards in order for players to connect with them, then their value is only skin deep. Funnily enough, we've actually seen a ton of criticism around the appearances of several female protagonists, not only in the last number of years, but also in the last.
Can we get subs? I don't know what the question. I don't know what that question is.
Several months. Some notable examples are Aloy from Horizon Forbidden West, Mortal Kombat's Tanya, and Fable's new lead.
Wait, what? Sorry, I missed the thesis of what she was talking about here.
Of criticism around the appearances of several female protagonists, not only in the last number with them, then their value is only skin deep. Funnily enough, we've actually seen a ton of criticism around the appearances of several female protagonists, not only in the last number of years, but also in the last several months.
So the issue is the mods make the armor skimpy and increase booba. It really has nothing to do with their face in Baldur's Gate 3. I mean, like, also, I don't mind skimpy armor or more booba in games. That's fine. That you know, my controversial opinion is I like playing games with hot ladies in them, but also I find a wide variety of women hot and don't feel the need to go and mod hotter women into my game. I do like clothing though, and I would very much like more clothing options in like Baldur's Gate or like Cyberpunk 2077, but that's just because I'm a shoe guy. I love shoes, and I love, like, you know, fashion building around outfits. That wasn't the right, you know, string of words, but I'm also sick and very tired.
Some notable examples are Aloy from Horizon Forbidden West, Mortal Kombat's Tanya, and Fable's new lead heroine, whose name I don't know, because although I looked on the internet didn't tell me, and then I just got sick of looking for it, and now...
That's because the game isn't out yet, and no one knows what the protagonist's name yet.
Now we're gonna call her Mrs. Magoo. Even if you do a very basic...
Oh no, there's definitely a mod that removes Lae'zel's Githyanki facial features. Okay. Well, that would suck.
Search about this topic, you will find countless articles and forums discussing why female characters are getting progressively uglier and uglier. People are apparently not a fan of this. At all. What I think is interesting is that the deliberate desexualization of female characters in video games has been happening already for some time. Over the years, more and more...
Okay, but like the the framing of this is already off to a bad start because the claim, oh, it's a deliberate desexualization, but they're fictional characters, Sydney. They don't have an inherent sexy or not sexy quality to them. You know, they're fictional. They're not real. So they can look however the game developers want them to look. Now, you might say, well, video game characters back in my day used to be way sexier. Okay, but like, why? You should ask why. Because the answer to that is to appeal to like horny teenage boys. And if you look at the demographics of who buys video games these days, you'll notice that it's not just horny teenage boys who buy video games anymore. It's people of all ages and also women. And maybe every video game doesn't need to be trying to appeal to horny teenage boys and can instead try to appeal to different demographics of people.
More criticism has been thrown at video game creators, with particular groups demanding women be treated less like fun dolls and more like actual people. There's been some success with that.
By the way, I can't wait for the heel turn here where she's like, video games shouldn't treat women like real people.
To be completely honest, but it seems like in this quest to undo the hypersexualization in video games, devs have taken things way too far in the opposite direction. To the point where people are beginning to think that female characters are being made deliberately uglier to not only appeal to a wider audience, but also just generally appear more realistic. And
yeah. On both accounts, that would be accurate. Yes. These products made by companies are being designed to appeal to even more people because the audience is bigger now. I told you this is where it was gonna go. Broader appeal and more realistic characters, but where am I gonna go to see hot, big booble ladies being objectified? Except every porn site ever. Literally every porn. You want to see video game ladies like objectified and over heavily sexualized? I guarantee just type that character's name into like Pornhub.
as a gamer myself, I find all of this very interesting. So that
as a gamer yourself, and you could not be bothered to play Baldur's Gate 3, the biggest video game release of the year? Curious.
That's what we're going to talk about today. The uglification of female characters in video games, and why this might be happening. And obviously...
Just want to remind you guys, this is the thumbnail of the video, where she looks exactly the same as the characters she's criticizing as ugly.
All of my normal disclaimers here. This video is by no means exhaustive. This will be covering a series of my personal opinions and theories about the topic, but if you want more information, there is a plethora of YouTube videos and articles and commentary and all sorts of things about this very topic that you can go and look at whenever you want. Now, with all of that being said, you know what isn't ugly? You quitting your bad habit, which is why today's video
is why you should inhale essential oils from this off-brand vape. You should inhale them. It's good for you.
By Foom. Maintaining your bad habit can often be...
I'm just gonna let this play because I know we did this last time we covered a Sydney Watson video, but I feel like we should cover this just because she's genuinely sincere about hawking a product where, again, the premise is you inhale essential oils.
Expensive. Especially right now as we're living through mass inflation. Please, spare some change. Not to mention, breaking that bad habit is hard. And at this point, you're tired of hearing everyone's annoying, unsolicited advice. Yes, I'm dressed up as a cow. And no, I don't understand how the peanut butter is going to help. But what if I told you it doesn't have to be miserable, weird, and expensive? Because now, you have Foom. Foom is this nifty little device that serves as an alternative to any hand-to-mouth habit. Foom is not a vape, so instead of heating up harmful chemicals for you to inhale, it uses flavored air. It also comes with an adjustable airflow dial and is designed with moving parts and magnets so that your fingers have something to do. Perfect for...
Oh, sorry. It's not a vaporizer. That's my bad. I misremembered the product. That's on me. However, you also just shouldn't inhale things that aren't air. Just as an FYI, public service announcement here. This is from 2022 from the journal Toxicol Science. It talks about Foom here, actually. Many of these inhaled essential oil devices utilize suggestive marketing techniques that certain products are a safer alternative to vaping, use super plants to help quitting smoking naturally, are a healthier, cleaner product to provide a sense of well-being, and alter your respiratory diet. Specifically, black pepper, peppermint, and lavender flavors are marketed as an aid to reduce nicotine cravings, improve breathing, and calm pain associated with nicotine and tobacco cessation. Although there is some limited evidence that flavoring compounds in essential oils may have benefits for nicotine cessation, there's been minimal investigation into the validity of essential oils use and the reduction of subjective ratings of nicotine craving claims. Specifically, the two studies found in the extant literature are extremely limited in scope, evaluated only short-term subjective symptoms, no respiratory endpoints were included, and the effects on long-term nicotine cessation were not evaluated. And let's see here. There's a broad range of literature suggesting that flavoring compounds like black pepper, cinnamon, vanilla, lemon/lime, mint, fir/pine, and eucalyptus contribute to airway toxicity, specifically impaired respiratory immune cell function, cytotoxicity, and increases in oxidative stress. Furthermore, room-diffused essential oils, including lavender, eucalyptus, and tea tree, have also been previously found to release known hazardous chemicals, such as terpenes, toluene, and benzene, which can cause respiratory symptoms including breathlessness and respiratory hyperresponsiveness in people with and without asthma. Lavender and tea tree oils may also act as endocrine-disrupting compounds, disrupting hormonal homeostasis. Finally, allergic sensitization is also a common side effect of dermal use of essential oils, including around the mouth, which would be a point of contact for these types of devices. The primary benefits of aromatherapy have been shown with inhalation at very low doses, like through room-based diffusers, candles, etc. Thus, inhalation of large doses of flavoring compounds included in essential oils may result in toxicity, which manifests in misfunctioning immune cells, epithelial inflammation, and altered mucus production, effectively compromising the ability of the lung to protect the body from inhalational hazards and pathogens. But anyway, I'm sure they're fine.
Or de-stressing.
They're not. Please don't buy them.
While you break your bad habit. And remember that flavored air I mentioned? Well, Foom has a range of flavors for you to try, including 3 new ones: orange vanilla, raspberry lemon, and sparkling grapefruit. This one's yummy. You just pop your preferred core in and you're ready to go. So
yes.
If you too want a yummy way of breaking your bad habit,
yes, you need the flavored suffocation juice.
Then click the link in the description or go to tryfoom.com/Sydney or scan the QR code on screen. And don't forget to use code Sydney for 10% off when you try a journey pack.
Oh yeah, Darkstar Mike, if you're eating like weed gummies, like you're already off to such a better start. Like weed gummies, I would say pretty healthy for you.
In 2019, a woman called Jacqueline Pavlat gave a TED Talk titled "Where Are Her Clothes?" An analysis of women in video games. During her discussion, Pavlat tried to illustrate her primary argument, that women in video games are scantily clad for no good reason, their armor in battle games is lacking compared to their male counterparts, and developers should be trying to make these female characters more realistic and relatable.
Which, by the way, is an argument that has not been made since 2019. This is an argument that has been around for like 30 years at this point.
Only a month earlier, a similar TED Talk had been given about the voices of female characters in video games. The speaker said that she had studied several popular game franchises and determined that the vocalizations of female characters were limited to 3 primary tropes. The victim, where women cry out in pain or sadness, the sexy witch who will kick your butt, and the
I am very fond of the sexy witch who will kick your butt. I do have a weakness for that. I admit it.
girly girl who is forced to fight. All of this, she concludes, is not very inspiring, and just like Pavlat in her TED Talk, makes the argument that these tropes are not great for female representation.
With some exceptions, these are the main options. And they're, once again, not very inspiring. We have weakness, we have horror, we have sexuality. And that's it. Those are the options for being a female character. Representation matters. We've heard this a lot, but I'm going to repeat it again. Representation matters. To see and to hear ourselves on screen humanizes us to ourselves, and it humanizes us to others.
Funnily enough, these arguments go all the way back to 1996, when
I mean, they predate Tomb Raider. Let's be honest about that.
the action-adventure game Tomb Raider first hit shelves around the world. It featured gun-wielding protagonist Lara Croft.
It featured Lara Croft killing innocent puppos who were minding their own business. Lara Croft, dog killer.
A female archaeologist tasked with fighting enemies and solving puzzles in her quest to find a precious artifact. The game was a huge success, marking Lara Croft as one of the most recognizable characters in the gaming world. It also sparked the beginning of the Tomb Raider franchise, giving us more games and films, and of course, plenty of arguing over Lara Croft's overall depiction and sexualization in the original game and those that came after.
I mean, like, yeah, I mean, it ignores Night Trap, but, like, I would argue our discussions about, like, women, the portrayal of women in video games, like, they go way, way back. Even before Night Trap.
Lara Croft first appeared on the scene, she was criticized for her impossibly tiny waist and large breasts. Some users actually created game patches made for the express purpose of removing her clothes. Past video games in the 1980s and early 90s were not advanced enough to really sexualize characters. Although female protagonists
Are you fucking kidding me? They made porn games back then. Okay, again, this is born out of just pure ignorance. Like, there were video games like Custer's Revenge, which had players raping indigenous women. It was a really bad time, generally. But these games existed. Porn games existed. Leisure Suit Larry is a game franchise entirely about a guy trying to get laid by sexy ladies. There were so many games involving, like, sexy ladies. Oh god, what was like, one second. I mean, like, one of the ways that you could see this, by the way, is in the marketing of a lot of video games, right? So one of the examples here. Can I open the image up? I would like to open the image up in a... No? Okay, whatever. We'll just throw it up on screen here. So one of the examples would be like Gauntlet. Gauntlet came out on like the Nintendo, like original Nintendo, right? Let's just take a look real quick at the cover art for Gauntlet. And it's a muscular dude, very muscular dude, very much He-Man style dude. And then there's the sexy lady in boob armor. Now, you might be like, well, obviously the barely dressed dude is there to appeal to women. And the answer to that is no, actually. No, that character is not there and depicted that way to appeal to women. That character is there and depicted that way to appeal to young boys as a power fantasy. That is explicitly what marketing teams at the time would have known and literally argued for decades. The woman is not there as a for young girls to look up to as a power fantasy. This girl is here and dressed this way and depicted this way to also appeal to the male, the fantasies of young boys. This is predominantly how video games were marketed for, like, the first, from the 1980s through probably 1970s, even like late 70s through like the early 2000s. Like, you can literally find video game ads from the early 2000s that were in like magazines that have implied orgasm, trying to relate like video games to orgasms. Like, it's crazy. Specifically male orgasms. Yeah. So all I'm trying to say here is that she's very wrong.
Protagonists were uncommon. Those that existed were fully clothed or wearing weird space armor, I guess. But all
the entire subversive point of Metroid was that people at the time, because Samus Aran wasn't being portrayed in a sexy way, automatically assumed that she was a man. The built-in assumption of her not being sexualized was that she was a man.
All of this changed with the advancement of graphics and technology, and after the popularity of 1996's Tomb Raider, despite the game's character models still being fairly primitive, there was concern that it would signal to developers that hypersexualized female characters were a way to bolster sales and make a mark on the industry. After all, the majority of gamers were and still are.
I'm sorry. Oh yeah. Here would be a perfect example. A perfect example, right? This is 100%, this is how video games are marketed in the 90s. Just in case you didn't notice, there's a beautiful naked woman on this page. When you've got Sega Saturn's triple 32-bit processing power, nothing else matters. This is an advertisement to interest young boys. She showed Rampage, where you literally grab a woman out of a building while showering King Kong style. You grab her out of a building while she's showering, King Kong style. She's literally showed in-game with sexualized characters. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I can see that. Okay, yeah, it's a 2-page spread. Oh my god, dude.
Are boys and men. And we know that all of you, majority, were a way to bolster signal to developers that hypersexualized female characters were a way to bolster sales and make a mark on the industry. After all, the majority of gamers were and still are boys and men. And we know that all—
Wait, that's not true. The majority of gamers were boys and men because the marketing predominantly was geared towards boys and men. But if you bothered to actually look into this topic, which, I happened to be a video game journalist for like a decade. Video games initially started out as something that were seen as like a boy and girl activity, because during kind of the birth of software itself was viewed as kind of a feminine thing, and over time got because women were the original software designers. It was viewed as a feminine thing to design software, and it was viewed as a masculine thing to design the hardware. But over time, more and more men got into coding and writing software. And this in turn resulted in a shift in the industry around the 1980s, during which marketing shifted to focusing on video games being a boy thing, because now boys were the majority of people becoming programmers. And so what ended up happening was that the marketing of these products in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s portrayed video games as a boy thing, and girls stopped playing video games as much. That because of like the social impact of the advertising, and because, like, frankly, the games themselves were not geared towards girls. And that's pretty obvious from the marketing and from the content of the games themselves. And then, if you looked at the data from today, you would know that the majority of people who play video games now are women. Let me just pull that up. Oh, well, also, I guess it depends on what you're talking about. So it depends on which subsection of gaming. Overall, it seems to be about evenly split, but there are some video game systems or video game genres where the majority of players are women. So, for example, this year, data came out that shows the majority of people who own the Nintendo Switch are women. The majority of people who own and play the Nintendo Switch are women. 54% of people who play mobile games are women. Half of PC gamers are women. And 52% of people who own the Nintendo Switch are women. So again, this is ridiculousness that she just is showing her ass, that she does not know what she's talking about. And the worst part is her audience is not going to care, because what she's doing is feeding a pre-built narrative to her audience that already believes these things and won't bother to check.
All of you still ooga booga at heart, even if some of you try to hide it. It's okay. Sort of. Now, by the 2000s, the conversation surrounding the hypersexualization of female characters and whether or not they existed solely as a male fantasy became a widely debated issue in the gaming world. One that has seemingly come to a head today, as demonstrated by our aforementioned TED Talks. And it seems that, in an effort to correct the perceived objectification of female characters, the pendulum has swung too far in the opposite direction. Rather than simply toning down the sexualized nature of these characters, which has already been happening for—
By the way, it is very rich that she's arguing this while showing footage from, like, Mortal Kombat, and this character still exists in Mortal Kombat and is still scantily dressed. So, it's a little bit undermines the point here.
on the sexualized nature of these characters, which has already been happening for the last number of years, some feel that Western developers and designers have gone the extra mile and deliberately made these characters progressively less and less attractive. I mean, obviously.
Also, are you really trying to argue that Aloy isn't attractive? Like, really? I'm pretty sure if I looked up Aloy on Rule 34 right now, she would have one of the most results.
Attraction is subjective, but so if this uglification
that the game this character is from isn't even out yet. Like you're just like, ugh, how dare this character that we haven't even seen what her journey is yet.
And information and writings and opinions relating to the sexualization of female characters, but when it comes to this particular topic, what might be guiding game developers and graphic designers and so on and so forth, there's very little in the way of...
I think there's unironically an article about them removing the jiggle physics in the Mario RPG from one of the bosses. That's pretty funny.
Qualitative information. So in the interest of accuracy, I just want to make note of the fact that the majority of the things that I have to say in this video are my personal observations and theories.
My personal observation and theory is that you need to take better care of your hair because it is tattered, my girl.
Nothing concrete, unfortunately. Except
I mean, it's pretty rich that you're complaining and also wrong about the video game topic that you're talking about, and you're complaining about all these characters being ugly, and your hair is just gnarled as fuck.
Are my personal observations and theories. Nothing concrete, unfortunately.
I mean, like, look at that. You know you're going on camera.
Except my desire to see the resurrection of babe characters with amazing...
Also, like, you're putting together, like, a video with like forethought and planning in it. I at least have the excuse that I go on camera every weeknight and make like 10 hours of content every night.
Grip strength. Not like that, you weirdos. Now, first and foremost, I do think there is something to be said about the integration of...
Oh, Aloy has 30 pages of images on Rule 34. Okay, cool.
More women in the gaming industry as both developers and designers. And to be clear, I do not bring this up to suggest that all women in these industries operate the same way or to tar them with the same brush, but what I'd like to do is hypothesize some of the psychology that might be driving some of these game developers.
I mean, you could just see what they say.
1989, about 30% of the video game industry was female, with the majority of those women holding low-ranking positions.
Man, it's pretty convenient that you just started in 1989 and you didn't look back at the history of that was prior to that. You know, like the history, say, 10 to 20 years prior to that would give you even more context into how everything you're about to say is bullshit.
Only 3% were actual developers. Today, this number has jumped to about 30% worldwide, with a further 8% saying they're non-binary or two-spirit or trans, which is honestly just like, case closed. This answers everything. But the sex of developers...
How? Could you maybe elaborate on that argument? Even a little? No? Oh, no, you can't elaborate on that. Well, okay, well, here's another part for you. Trans women have been making video games since the beginning of video games. That's just true. You can look into that. Trans women were making arcade games back in the day. It's true. She thinks all trans women are people who just want to make video game characters ugly. But see, that doesn't even make sense, Salmon Moose, because we all know trans women are just horny all the time and want all the women in video games to be hot. Anyway, moving on.
developers alone does little to explain why they might be giving us unappealing female characters. After all, we have to assume that women would likely want to see other attractive women, right?
Wrong! Some women do not want that, and some men pretend not to want that. This is why we can't have nice things.
It's
This is only accurate if you think that the only reason to have a human being on screen at any given time is to sexually titillate the viewer, which, judging again by your appearance, you do not believe that. You genuinely don't believe what you just said, given how you are presenting yourself in this video. Also, I need to use the bathroom because I've just been filled passively with so much bullshit from this video. I need to go shit it out into the proper receptacle. I'll be right back. Here we go.
And some men pretend not to want that. This is why we can't have nice things.
It's worth remembering that we are all a product of our time. Female developers in the 80s and 90s were not only a completely different generation, being baby boomers and Gen Xers, but they also grew up largely with different technology and different messaging around attractiveness and beauty. Games were so basic at the time that, like I mentioned, there really wasn't a lot of room to sexualize anything. There were some significant limitations on what could and couldn't be produced, and likely what people were prepared to produce. Today's developers are...
Again, there were porn games at the time. There were porn games. There were games entirely built around men wanting to have sex and trying to find women to have sex with them. Again, this is not even difficult to find information.
Are millennials and Gen Z, generations who were exposed to the body shaming of the 2000s that deemed women like Jessica Simpson, Tyra Banks, and America Ferrera fat. In the 2000s, women were subjected to fairly specific representations of what was attractive and what was not. Most of us were exposed to movies and television shows like Bridget Jones's Diary, Love Actually, and Sex and the City that routinely referred to pretty normal-looking women as chunky or plus-sized.
Not to mention, society was becoming increasingly comfortable with the hypersexualization of practically everything. And I have to imagine, at least to some extent, that video games were a representation of these societal standards. Like,
Video games, to a degree, were, but also were in a very different way, like kind of supercharged, specifically because they were designed primarily to appeal to teenage boys. Because that was the marketing ethos of the time. Like, this is just kind of where we're at. And frankly, we're still in a time where literally any woman existing on the internet is still going to be called fat, regardless of what their actual weight is, regardless of like whether they're healthy or unhealthy. Like they're still gonna be called fat. For goodness sake, men are saying like what's her face who played Barbie is fat. Like there are people who claim any woman is just fat, and that's ridiculous, obviously.
Like, yes, all of those things, very bad. But one of the most shameful things we did during this period of time was put too many clothes on top of other clothes. Like, I don't know why Lizzie McGuire is over here wearing 5 shirts. Screw diet culture.
What? She's wearing 2 shirts? If she was just wearing the one shirt, she would either have a bare chest because it's see-through, or she would just be wearing a tank top. like, which, by the way, it's a school, it's a show set in a high school where if you just, again, in the 90s and early 2000s, if you wore spaghetti strap as a shirt, you would be sent home. She's doing it because she's a high school student who would get sent home. Like like what, this isn't a mystery. You can just look or remember the time, I guess.
Like, I don't know why Lizzie McGuire is over here wearing 5 shirts.
Like, chat, you guys have seen me. I have shirts that are see-through, and I wear something under those shirts. This isn't a mystery.
Screw diet culture. Curb your spending habits. The early 2000s was a cursed era for many young women and men.
Wait, I'm gonna unban. Okay, there we go. I don't know, Jakar612. I don't know why Nightbot smacked you.
And it set the stage for the pushback that would roll around a short time later in the mid-2010s as the body positivity movement picked up some serious steam. All of this seemed to have culminated in the intense desire to see what many considered normal women in media and entertainment. No more waif-thin supermodels, but everyday relatable women and girls. And then this gave way, I guess, to whatever the hell we're looking at and seeing and being exposed to today with fat acceptance and all this type of stuff, and I hate
Sydney, you would be called fat under the standards you're advocating for here. Like that, what are you talking about? You're not Kate Moss, okay? And no one should be. Kate Moss was like freakishly thin and clearly someone who needed to eat more food. Like, come on now.
it here. And also, just to be clear, this period of
Nightbot is very upset at you for some reason, Jakar.
time didn't exclusively shame women's bodies. It definitely did that to men as well. But I think a core component to this conversation is that men and women perceive that shaming completely differently, which we'll come back to a little later. Now, with all of this in mind, a population of body traumatized young men and women went on to enter the creative fields. And I think it's clear from media and entertainment today that a portion of these people were invested in the promotion of not only normal bodies, but their bodies. I think this is important to note because there is something about this group of people.
But like, are you just arguing that like fat people shouldn't exist in games? Because like, the push for including fat people in video games was fueled by the realization that really the only time like fat or overweight women were in a video game was to make fun of them for being fat or overweight. Like there was I think a game called Cake Princess, where the entire premise was that you had to like move knights around in order to carry an obese woman around to eat cake. Like that was the premise of the game. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, Fat Princess. Sorry. Fat Princess, a fistful of cake. Thank you, very knifey duck. Yeah, it was literally called Fat Princess. It was actually worse than I was imagining. Yeah. And that was like, you know, like you could have fat men in games. This was kind of the double standard, right? Like you could have fat men in games. Like Mario's a chubby little guy. Wario is one of the most beloved characters of all time, and he's a chonky man. But you know, that's still fine. He's still cool as hell. he drives a motorcycle. Roadhog is cool. You know, you had characters from Street Fighter who were chunky men. You know, like, you had cool characters of all kinds of weight in the rosters of legendary male characters. You didn't have that in E Honda. That's who I was trying to think of. But you didn't have that for women. And honestly, frankly, still don't have that for women in video games.
People, that means they want to see themselves and their social initiatives reflected in media. Not to mention, reportedly over 40% of gamers are female today, so there seems to be a strong emphasis.
Again, I don't know where she's getting this information, because if you Google like percentage of women who play games, it's about 50%.
Placed on making media that appeals to them.
To us.
Although, you know, I probably should say that I don't know what kind of gamers these statistics are including in their analysis and whatnot, but I do have to...
is she gonna pull mobile gamers aren't real gamers? Is she gonna, like, try to be that elitist when she hasn't even played Baldur's Gate?
Say that, you know, maybe this is including things like The Sims, and if you play The Sims, you're not a gamer.
Why? Explain why. Oh, yeah. You're not a gamer if you play this one game. Why?
Fight me. Yeah, you Sims.
Oh, well, you know what? You're not a gamer because you didn't play Baldur's Gate 3, and you included one of the characters from it in the thumbnail for this video. You're not a real gamer either. Look, we can play that too. Wow, you haven't played Baldur's Gate 3? Not a real gamer. It's just arbitrary gatekeeping, you know? Like, again, if you play The Sims, if you play Animal Crossing, if you play mobile games, you're still a gamer. The reason she's trying to discount The Sims is because The Sims is considered a more feminine game, and she knows that would tilt her statistics that she's trying to quote.
People, I am talking directly to you, into your face. Yeah. Now, couple all of this with a few
oh, okay. She didn't even really make an argument for why. She just is saying things. You know, kind of the way that, like, I can just say, her hairline is deeply weird and seems to be, like, just selectively bald up on the top. And it's really not a great look for her, frankly, the way her hair is parted, and she should probably improve it somehow. I don't know. Frankly, the honestly, God is, you know, God having these womanly characteristics is making everything ugly these days, and Sydney Watson is evidence as to why and how.
Decades of intense criticism towards hypersexualized, scantily clad female characters, and it kind of makes sense why there's this intense desire to remove these perceived sexist tropes from media. And this seems to have resulted in a few things. For starters, many new characters have been designed to meet realistic beauty standards, and existing characters have been downgraded to be less sexualized and overall less sexually appealing. Sometimes these changes are actually executed well, as in the case of Lara Croft. She's been given more clothes and her body has been adapted to look more normal, but she's still very attractive, just to be clear there. The same really can't be said for characters like Aloy from Horizon.
Yes, Aloy, no one considers Aloy attractive. Like literally, you can Google Aloy is hot. Why does Aloy have to be hot? Why is Aloy so beautiful? Aloy is so hot. Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn might be the sexiest character. Do you think Aloy was designed to be hot? Maybe let's stop debating the attractiveness of Aloy. Is Aloy the hottest female video game protagonist ever? Is Aloy the hottest female video game protagonist ever? Dude. God.
Can't be said for characters like Aloy from Horizon Forbidden West and several Mortal Kombat characters. When Horizon Forbidden West
Oh, I'm sorry. Were there not enough sexy characters in Mortal Kombat? For you? I don't know what to tell you guys.
was first teased in 2021, the game's main character Aloy was immediately criticized for her new physical appearance. Many people felt that she looked, overall, less appealing. And personally, having played both Horizon games, this is an assessment that I agree with, although I would say that, like, no one in those games is particularly attractive. But it's hard to put...
Yeah, it's almost like they live in a post-apocalyptic robot hellscape and don't have time for, like, skincare.
A finger on why that is exactly. In an attempt to defend her new appearance, the usual suspects jumped in to argue that makeup doesn't exist in a post-apocalyptic world, she lives in a hot climate, which is why she's blotchy, and even that she's eating more food now, that she's beaten the machines in the first game. I'm not kidding, that is a real thing that people have said, and I don't know what I'm doing here anymore.
Claims to be a real gamer, doesn't care about video game lore. Wow. It just seems to be like, oh god. Sims isn't a game, why not? Who can say, Foxlink Hightower? Wait, I thought she was quoting a misguided view, not that it was her own. Nope. This entire thing is her view. Her view is that video games have been made deliberately less sexy to cater to the liberal SJW snowflake cuck agenda.
Regardless, it's clear that someone made a decision to change her appearance when there was no meaningful reason to do so, and honestly...
Why is chat so behind? Oh, Strawberry System, if you want to be in the on-screen chat, you have to go to riverboat.gg. Sorry. That's where the on-screen chat is, if anyone of you would like to come over here.
Not enough time had passed in the game world between games 1 and 2. It had been about 6 months. I don't know why she looks so different. They also...
Well, it could also be that, you know, Horizon Zero Dawn was made on a different generation of console, and Forbidden West came out on next-gen consoles, and they had increased ability to render character models, which you would know since you played both of them, allegedly.
Also gave her a single same-sex love interest in the game's DLC, and
that's pretty cool.
That makes me think that maybe they made her ugly on purpose so that she could be a Where's the lie? Sydney, please!
As we all know, lesbians are ugly. Which is why men fetishize lesbians and can't leave them alone. It's because they're so ugly, right? It's because lesbians are just ugly, and that's why men constantly want to fuck them. Sure.
Kombat 1 also experienced similar treatment. The recent release of the game's trailer sparked a tremendous amount of criticism with relation to several characters, most notably Tanya, and the criticism came from two fronts. One, it was noted that Tanya's previous appearance had been scrapped. Her otherworldly features that made her quite beautiful were gone, and she looks
What?
nothing like her earlier depictions. And two, the actress on which she is based is very beautiful, and the two now look nothing alike. This, of course, raised a bunch of eyebrows. Why use an extremely beautiful woman if you have no intention of depicting her actual appearance? Something really interesting to consider here.
Yes. Why use CGI when you could just use a person? Why would they use a video game, like a CGI model inside of a video game, instead of just doing an FMV capture? Incredible stuff.
There is a prevailing attitude in some radical feminist communities that basically says that in order to defy beauty
Also, like, she still looks good. Like, I'm genuinely baffled about this response.
expectations and standards, you have to actively abandon them. Now, obviously, I don't know.
Yeah, she's basically trying to be anti-Anita Sarkeesian.
People who work in the gaming industry consider themselves radical feminists, but I think it's plausible that at least a portion of them do. And if these developers and designers are trying to apply their personal social justice or intersectional framework to the creations they're working on, it makes sense why existing female characters are being made progressively less and less attractive. Again, the position.
Why do we care about these random Twitter posts that you shared? Are those people in the video game industry? Or are they not? You hid their info, so presumably they're not. They're just saying things that you don't like, I guess. But I mean, everyone can find something they don't like on social media, so how is this at all representative of like a wider trend? And if it was, couldn't you have shown more than like one tweet interaction?
Here and the idea behind this is that women must actively uglify themselves in order to demonstrate their commitment to female liberation.
Oh! That's why she looks this way in this video. It makes so much more sense now. Sydney Watson in this video is fighting the good fight for female liberation. That makes so much more sense. And also, this is her way of coming out as a lesbian. Oh, it makes so much more sense now, chat. Or she's full of bullshit. You know, one of those.
So this might explain why it feels like we've gone from one extreme to the other. These characters are either beautiful and hypersexualized, or they look like the new Fable character, and nobody can explain why. And sadly,
look, lady, the new Fable game isn't even out, and given that they've announced new Fable games like 5 times over the last decade, and then those games never came out, I'm gonna go out on a limb and guess this one's not gonna come out either, and if it does, it's going to be substantially different from the... I mean, it's not really a trailer. There's not any game to speak of yet, so... Yeah, it's a single frame from a trailer of a game that isn't even out yet and might never come out.
similar to the point I made in my Disney Princesses video, this binary leaves us with very few options in between. Alongside this is the idea that a woman...
Oh, and Aloy's character model is based on this lady, who looks exactly like her, but with makeup on, and blonde hair. Literally just complaining about the fact that real women exist and are in video, like, are the basis of video game characters, instead of, like, I don't know, the wank-off material of teenage boys.
Women can't simultaneously be beautiful and strong or feminine and independent. And that underscores...
Which is crazy, by the way, that they're trying to say that, and, like, then showing like beautiful, strong women in the video of modern games. Like I don't know where you're getting this from.
Scores the subtext that surrounds this debate. A female character, a woman, can't be strong and powerful while also subscribing to standards that are viewed as oppressive. You guys might think that
You just showed Elizabeth from BioShock Infinite, one of the most conventionally attractive characters of like the last decade. And she literally had the power to rip apart the entire universe. Sorry, multiverse? Like what are you talking about?
subscribing to standards that are viewed as oppressive. You guys might think that I am lying about this as an ideology, but a radical feminist once told me to my face that wearing high heels is a tool of the patriarchy.
Damn, that's crazy that one person told you something one time and you're taking that as gospel for an entire industry that makes billions upon billions of dollars by appealing to the vast majority of Earth's population. But you know, one person told you something one time that was completely unrelated to video games, so
I was like, lady, I'm 5'11". If I wear high heels and then stand in a room full of average-sized men, I am the patriarchy. Anyway.
She's not beating the lesbian allegations.
This was an attitude that I came into contact with again and again while researching for this video. The need for realism and the inability to suspend disbelief when it comes to
Patriarchy is when tall. As we all know, before the women's liberation movement, all women were at least a foot shorter. It's true. It's true. No woman was taller than the smallest man.
To hot, skilled, badass female characters. I think it's fair to say that both men and women approach and perceive realism and fantasy.
You know, men used to wear high heels in like the 1600s, so honestly, women now wearing high heels is a real symptom of the patriarchy. Women can only get ahead by wearing high heels, the original footwear of men. I like come on. You're using an argument like that to like basically justify your entire view of a multi-billion-dollar industry.
See very differently. While I was researching for this video, I listened to several female speakers and read countless articles and studies that mention the same
Did you? Because your timeline for video games went back to 1989, which is woefully incomplete. And also, a lot of your sources came from like 2019 and 2018, and this discussion has been going on for like 40 years. I don't think you actually read countless articles.
thing over and over again.
Because, you know, if you did, it's weird that you wouldn't include them in your video. You know?
Women want to see realistic depictions of female characters.
Dead Domain. This is the holy grail of someone not knowing anything about the industry talking about them.
One 2021 article stated, female players are constantly fed...
Oh, sorry. Nightbot will also slap people aggressively in YouTube chat, sorry.
unrealistic body proportions, outfits, and armor. It can be
And also in Twitch chat. Why? Why, Nightbot?
difficult to become truly immersed in a video game world where you don't feel respected or welcome. Most of these articles focus specifically on female characters, and there isn't much mention when it comes to men, despite the fact that male characters are still subject to the same standards when it...
Again, male characters dressed like this are not there to appeal to women. Generally speaking, the reason men are displayed like this in video games is to appeal to men. Either the gays or the male gaze. Boom. See what I did there?
it comes to unrealistic body proportions and outfits. Even the article I referenced at the beginning of this video admits that this double standard exists, acknowledging that mods exist across plenty of games that make men shirtless. I guess that men don't really care about that because I'm like 98% sure that most men enjoy seeing other men shirtless. I go to
Yes. Yes. Literally, the history of men being shirtless in video games is because they exist as male power fantasies of what it would be like to have big, strong muscles and beat things up. That's the Conan the Barbarian fantasy fulfillment that they are designed to fulfill. Yes.
to the gym too, guys. I see whose muscles you're checking out, and it's typically not us. At least I'm coming after everyone equally today. Another writer, again in 2021, also expressed sadness around the attractiveness of female characters, writing, "We should be saddened every time controversies over the relative attractiveness of female characters arise. We saw how out of hand things got last year in reaction to The Last of Us Part 2 having female protagonists who didn't have typically feminine bodies. The reality is that women, and more broadly people, come in every shape and size, and they are under no obligation to beautify themselves to appease strangers. We deserve the option to consume media that reflects that."
True.
This writer is referencing controversy surrounding The Last of Us Part 2's character Abby, who is muscular and probably not one that a lot of people would consider feminine. Abby did produce a lot of negative feedback, but this likely could be attributed more to the fact that The Last of Us Part 2 did an enormous disservice to the first game, made her character kill another beloved character, and then force players to play as her for the rest of the story. So with that said, while Abby is not stereotypically attractive, people disliked her for a host of additional reasons. And as far as
I think a lot of people were upset because she was a big muscle lady and hella gay.
Real representations go, I think it's fair to say here that your average woman absolutely doesn't look like this. It's not to say that a designer can't create an Abby-like character because so few—
Well, your average woman also doesn't look like a waifishly thin model. Your average woman actually is much closer to looking like an Abby.
Women like this exist out in the world, but if the point is to represent normal body types, even this isn't normal. And I suppose that's part of—
By the way,
not to say that a designer can't create an Abby-like character because so few
Video
women like
games,
this
Jack.
exist out in the world, but if the point is to represent normal body types, even this isn't normal. And I suppose
No, why?
even this isn't—
This is so much closer to normal. What are you talking about? It's literally just a woman with defined biceps. What are you talking about? Like, literally I can just Google woman with biceps. Oh look. Women with biceps and muscles. That's crazy. That's wild, dog. Bitch looks like literally everyone else in this thumbnail.
normal. And I suppose that's part of the issue with the representation of females in games. We're still not being given normal women, and to be fair, how could we possibly?
Yeah. How dare there be a fantasy woman who looks different? I can't, dude. We're still not being given normal woman. See, look at all of these non-normal women. You're showing us an actual alien as an example from a game you admitted you haven't played. Why do all of these monster girls not look like normal humans? I just don't understand. It's so clear she wasn't paying attention to games around 2010 where women like Beatrice in Dante's Inferno and Jen in Splatterhouse were the norm. Well, that Dead Domain, and also she looked dead into the camera and said that The Sims doesn't count as a video game. So it really tells you where she's coming from.
Nothing about gaming is realistic or normal. And don't get me wrong, this isn't a bad thing. The ability to play as a highly skilled, extremely attractive person is part of the enjoyment of these games. For some, it offers a level of escapism. Things don't always have to be realistic or make sense. And for whatever reason, devs and designers seem
That's crazy. Things don't always have to be realistic or make sense. But maybe they could sometimes. You know, maybe things could sometimes be realistic and make sense. Like, you know, having realistic body types in a video game that's trying to be grounded in realism. Really makes you think.
to find this rationale perfectly acceptable when it comes to male characters, many of whom are also sexualized, unclothed, and extremely unrealistic as far as
Yeah, but again, if you had read countless articles on this, you would know that, again, these characters are designed to appeal to men and male power fantasies, not to women. They aren't sexualized in the way that, like, appeals to women. Like, I don't get the impression that Sydney Watson is looking at this guy and just being like, oh my god, my clit is so hard, I want him so bad. Like, I don't think that's happening.
As their bodies and appearances go. Even male players themselves are fine with this, given that these characters are potentially a fantasy of what men want to be.
It's not just potentially, that's the intent of their design, yeah. You can actually look at the history of, like, advertisers for games and also game designers themselves talking about this specific thing.
Strong, often handsome, armed to the teeth, and skilled in all sorts of combat situations. They are something to aspire to, and therefore, the user experience is more enjoyable because these are
I can't believe that for an example of what to put over, like, things to aspire to, she put the scene from Resident Evil 5 where Chris Redfield punches a boulder into a volcano. Are you kidding me?
characters that men can actually emulate. And not only that, but I think men are better with escapism and fantasy in general. Obviously, we don't really know why that is. Chalk it up to men are from Mars and women are from Venus.
Yeah, men famously more into escapist fantasies than women. Don't ever look up the most popular fiction genres for women, I guess.
Or something. One last thing that I would like to note before I round out this video and finish it off is that in my travels of the internet, when I was reading the comments of other gamers, I noticed that some of them called out the double standard that exists when it comes to ugly male characters. There are a lot of them, and how people are very unfazed by this. While this observation is definitely true, I think this can be chalked up overall to the fact that there are just more male characters in any and all video games. This means that there are greater opportunities for all different sorts of characters.
Maybe there should be more women characters in things. And that way, you can have your overly sexualized female characters, and also there still be room for there to be, like, an overweight woman in a video game without you shitting your pants.
Not to mention the fact that we interpret male and female attractiveness in different ways. So given the fact that we have so few female protagonists, when one is made ugly, whether she existed previously or is a new creation, we notice. we can't help but notice.
Also, again, her example of a character being made ugly when previously they were attractive was Aloy, and literally the ugliness was just a higher definition character model because it's for a different console generation. I mean, come on now. Come on. There are men out there in their basements complaining about Laura Croft being made unsexy because she doesn't have the huge polygon breasts that she used to have.
With that said too, I don't deny that this means that there is a lack of range for these female characters. But I am
Then what, you're acknowledging the problem that you've been railing against for the entire video. I acknowledge there's a lack of range. The lack of range was the thing all of the developers are advocating to change. They aren't saying there's no room for sexy ladies, just that not every character needs to be a sexy lady. Goodness gracious. Yo, you're being real weird in YouTube chat. The vast majority of us like real beauty, not fat, not les, not scrawny. We like healthy mothering bodies. I'm sorry, dude. If you're out in public and you're looking around and you're like, ah, yes, a healthy mothering body. I mean, that's a you problem, dude.
probably not the woman to ask because personally I am totally fine
You might want to bring that up. Might want to bring that up in therapy, my guy.
playing as very attractive gaming characters who are just really good at climbing walls. I like the badass boss babes. I think they're pretty great. And
That is pretty cool. And clearly you still enjoyed Horizon because you played that game.
unlike other entertainment mediums, this is one of the areas where I don't need things to be realistic for it to be enjoyable. Finally, while I understand—
So you need the women characters to be sexy in order for it to be enjoyable, though? Like you on top of needing like cool gameplay like fighting and taming robots in Horizon Zero Dawn, you also need to be looking at Aloy and being like, God, she's so fucking hot. I mean, that also seems deeply weird. I don't know. I don't need Keanu Reeves to be really hot. You know, like I'm not particularly attracted to John McClane, but Die Hard still slaps.
and appreciate the desire to tone down some of the hypersexuality in video games, I also don't think that the quest for realism is necessary.
Oh, Scotty Crippen, I see you're presenting as fucking dickbag today. How you doing?
In the end, I think it undermines what makes games so fun and exciting in the first place. Our ability to disconnect and experience something that we don't get in our everyday lives. Now, before I open the floor to all of you, this is just a reminder to check out Foom using the link in the description, or
Just a reminder to inhale these cancerous devices.
scanning the QR code on screen, and they can help you start your habit-breaking journey today. Now, I open the floor to all of you. What do you all think? Are video game characters, particularly female ones, actually getting more unattractive? Do you think that this is deliberate? Do you think that it's not happening and people are blowing this way out of proportion? What do you make of some of the criticisms and arguments surrounding this topic, like the Fable heroine or Aloy or
Rome-type men, not guys. You know that Rome-type men, like, were fucking other dudes all the time, right? By the way, the stupid AI video earlier made me mad and I can't even see. Ah, Garrett Klein, I'm sorry. Can I get mod on YouTube? Sure. Yeah, that AI video was infuriating on a number of different levels. But I will say that this Sydney Watson video gave it a run for its money, you know? Like the abject ignorance on the topic, like the weirdly just arrogance of the presentation on top of just her being very hateful in general. I don't know. Plus the hawking of like a cancer-causing device. It's all pretty bad, pretty disgusting. Yeah, anyway, Sydney Watson's full of shit. Congratulations, we made it through another Sydney Watson video and learned very little to nothing. Mostly, if you made it through that entire video, you made it. You're smarter because of the things I told you, which are actually true. That was painful. It was terrible. I smoothed your brains successfully. Men want muscle and pleasant, not aggressive, pretty women. Most women want the same. You're right. Most women do want muscle and pleasant, non-aggressive, pretty women. That's true. Most women do want that. Thanks, Jack. My brain is now smoother than those AI-generated video game character faces. What was the message of that shit video? The message was that there is likely a sinister conspiracy of SJWs turning video game women ugly in order to push an agenda of fat acceptance, I guess, and ugly acceptance, and ruining video games in general. That was the message. Holy fuck. Chat, we've now been streaming for 4.5 hours. If you've been enjoying the stream, consider dropping some subs or donos, because that was pure suffering. And I can only present you this pure suffering at a certain rate of speed and time. And if I don't have the money, I will surely perish. You gave me the ugly? No. Sydney Watson gave you the ugly. She clearly had it, and it was contagious.